Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's class. Our lesson today is Independent Nations of South Asia. This is chapter number 19, section number 1. You can find this lesson onto your textbook page number 655 to 657. Basically, this is the second portion of the lesson that we have started last week. So it is basically the remaining portion of the lesson. Let's move on to the chapter, the lesson objectives. Lesson objectives say that you must be able to understand why independence brought partition to South Asia. You must be able to describe how Indian leaders they built a new nation. This we have already discussed in the last week. The two points. This we are going to focus on how Pakistan and Bangladesh they grew apart. Describe the reasons for ethnic conflict in Sri Lanka and explain the role played by India and Pakistan in the Cold War. This slide is actually the point where we left the lesson last week. That this slide was the one that we were discussing. That in India in 1984, some extremist Sikhs they took over the Golden Temple, their own holiest shrine, as a kind of pressurizing tool to pressurize the Indian government to consider their demands. Basically, it was a separation movement, but ultimately the government responded with force. They sent troops to press the revolt or to punish the culprits. As a result, the angry bodyguards of Indira Gandhi, who was a Sikh, he killed her. So that was one of the blow to the Indian democracy that was actually claiming to be a secular country that where everybody has the right to follow his religious beliefs. And so Sikh, they believe that they are being persecuted and they are being maltreated in the country. They are not given the equal rights like the Hindu majority. So as a result, that was a big episode that actually shook the entire state structure of the Indian Union. Out of these circumstances, BJP, which is actually current political party that is holding the government in India, that emerged actually under the banner of secular government, but in disguise they were extremist Hindus, those who wanted a Hindu government, and they encouraged violence against the Muslims particularly. They wanted to establish a Hindu dominance all over India. So that was the point that we discussed last week. Moving on to the next point. Today's topic is now focused first with Pakistan. It says that Pakistan was created in 1947 along with India as a separate nation for Muslims. Basically, the creation of Pakistan, the ideology of Pakistan is based on the two nation theory, which says that Hindu and Muslims are two different ethnic communities. They are two different civilizations. They can not survive together, or they cannot live together in one area. There are two extremes, opposite extremes of each other. So Pakistan was demanded for the Muslims of the subcontinent, so that they must be free to exercise their religion without any, you can say, outside interference. So once the country of Pakistan was created, the geography was actually that Pakistan was created into two parts, two portions. One in the East Pakistan and the other one was the West Pakistan. In between the two territorial portions of Pakistan was around 1,000-mile long Indian territory. So technically it was very much difficult for Pakistan to maintain the two territories equally. And the government in East Pakistan, the people in East Pakistan were majority Bengali. Whereas the people in the West Pakistan, they were of multi ethnic backgrounds. But the government in overall Pakistan was dominated by the West Pakistan, although the population was more of the East Pakistan. So East Pakistan was more populated while the government was dominated by the West Pakistan ethnic groups. As a result, there was a continuous kind of clash, or you can say a conflict within the elite circles, the political circles of the country, that power is being misused by the West Pakistanis against the East Pakistanis. They are not being given the rights on the basis of equality. Ultimately, the foreign interference became more and more, you can say, prominent or more and more aggressive into the East Pakistan, where particularly India, they provide all kind of economic and military support to the separation movement. Ultimately, East Pakistan separated from the West Pakistan in the shape of Bangladesh in 1971. So basically, the conflict is actually rooted in the East Pakistanis, that they claim that the government in West Pakistan focused only to develop the people of the West Pakistan. So they felt that they are being neglected, and as a result, they demanded separation. So this is the actually the purple color, actually the this gray color actually is Bangladesh, which is once was a part of East Pakistan, and the green color is all India. On the western side, it is the West Pakistan. So in 1971, actually, the people of East Pakistan, they declared their independence with the help of India, who interfere in East Pakistan militarily. Ultimately, the forces of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan were unable to defend the eastern flank. As a result, the people of East Pakistan were successful in claiming their independence. So the succession movement of East Pakistan actually created a huge bloodshed, and Pakistani forces were ordered to crush the rebellion, and India on the other side came to the rescue of the separation movement. So the rebels, they were having a clear and you can say all sorts of help from the Indian government. Ultimately, Pakistan had no choice but to recognize the new nation of Bangladesh. In the pursuing war, actually, Pakistan lost around 100,000 soldiers, which were actually imprisoned by Indian soldiers. As a result, the peace treaty was signed, and the first term of the peace treaty was that Pakistan will recognize unconditionally the separation or independence of East Pakistan. Since independence, actually, Bangladesh, because it is a small sized territory but highly populated, so Bangladesh had problems to manage its population, birth control, and to manage its agricultural resources. At the same time, it had some natural disasters like floods and tropical storms, typhoons, which ultimately created lots of troubles to the economy of the newly born Bangladesh. And slowly and gradually, Bangladesh government tried to overcome these challenges. You can see in the book that one of the Bangladeshi citizen, Muhammad Yunus, was granted Nobel Peace Prize for initiating the small-scale economic reforms in the shape of small loans to start the small enterprises, house-based industries. So these were some of the attempts by the Bangladeshi governments to reform the economy and to stabilize the government, which ultimately paid off the price. Today, you can see that Bangladesh has a good economy, and they are having good GDP, even better than Pakistan. So they are good in textile industries. They have good agricultural exports. So they have actually managed to uh, head on to defeat the challenges that came to their head on path. So that was all about Bangladesh. Moving on to the next slide. It says Pakistan actually suffered political instability due to their varied ethnic backgrounds of the population. Muslim uh, rigid Muslim culture is in the north, and the people of the northern regions of the Pakistan, they are believed to be very much fundamentalist, and they favor the Islamic law. Um, they Other groups, they actually try to destabilize the government. There were so many, you can say, regional or local kind of separation movements. For example, in Balochistan, in Sindh, they were actually fueled up by India and outside interference. For example, the separation movement of Balochistan is being fueled by India and Afghanistan and Iran, and separation movement of Sindh is being fueled by India at the moment. So Pakistan had suffered actually political destability due to foreign involvement as well as the conflicts within the local ethnic groups. So was tension remained high throughout the period, throughout the history of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But ultimately, Pakistani government, with the help of a strong military, actually managed to suppress all these terrorist groups, uh, those who were coming, or you can say infiltrating from Afghanistan, or they were being sponsored by India through Iranian territory or through Afghan territory. Because Indian spy agency RAW has had a great network of spies in Afghanistan and Iran, where they run the chambers by remaining underground and following the destabilization policies through sabotage and terrorism in Pakistan. Moving into another important country of the region is it is Sri Lanka. It was a colony of Britain that actually got independence in 1948, and it was renamed Sri Lanka before it was known as Ceylon. So, like India, like Pakistan, like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka has also witnessed, or you can say, experienced an ethnic tension or ethnic conflict within the country. And the majority of the Sri Lankans are Buddhist who speak Sinhalese, but there are also Tamils that are basically Hindus. Tamils, they have been demanding separation from 1970s because of the feeling that they are being deprived of their political rights. So they demanded separation. They are in the north of the country, and they are being supported by India in their separation movement. So Sri Lanka, with the help of other nations, particularly Pakistan, they managed to suppress the separation movement and ultimately bring the things in their control and to restore the peace in the country. But still, for a long time, they have been suffering very badly throughout their history in terms of ethnic conflict. One of the most important topic here within the lesson is that how both India and Pakistan, they played their role during the Cold War. You must remember that we discussed that during the Cold War, Pakistan was the member of American group. India remained practically, in theory, India remained neutral, but India was a staunch ally of USSR. USSR was one of the major supplier of arms to India, but on terms of diplomatic grounds, India maintained in its impartiality, but Pakistan, although by theory claimed to be impartial, but because of its geographical location, was forced to join the American group and played a dominant role during the Cold War. But on the political grounds, Pakistan and India, both of them were the leading figures and early founding members of the creation of NAM, which is called Non-Aligned Movement. NAM was actually created in order to bring all the impartial countries of the world onto a single platform where they denounced the policies of the Cold War of the big powers, and they clearly declared their non-involvement into the ideological conflict of USSR and USA. So both Pakistan and India, they were among the nations those who got freedom from the British colonial rule right after the war. They were among the first nations. So they played the dominant role, leading role in the creation of NAM in 1955. That was created. The first meeting of the NAM took place in Bandung, in Jakarta, uh, Indonesia. Then its first formal meeting was took place in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. But later on, NAM actually lost its credibility because the Cold War ended, and there was a huge, you can say, sense of creating groups for economic rivalry. The countries of the European Union actually created an economic bloc. NATO was also mobilized. Warsaw Pact remained there, but it was not that much active. So basically, NAM actually lost its credibility. This is the end of the lesson. I hope you will understand the topic. I have tried to explain all the important terms, all the important ideas. Inshallah, next week we will come back with a new lesson. Until that time, see you.